Chilly here with Sirius Taurus Moon. This is Jupiter Hour Mars Day. And we are in Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv recording the 2027 broadcast. So, without further ado, I'm using astroseek.com. We went through the eclipses. And now I'm going to go through it month by month. So we're beginning in January 2027. Things that immediately pop. The conjunctions with Lilith in Capricorn. Mercury-Sun conjunction. And why do I say conjunction and not cazimi? Because to see whether it is cazimi or not, I would actually need to observe it in the sky. And I take a note at Sun Mercury meeting in the middle decan of Capricorn. And this is a decan that I call the Prepper's Decan. Perhaps it was originally named something like Doomsday Decan, but this is the place in Capricorn where we plan ahead for something that could stand the test of time. Chiron direct, January 6th, on 26 degree Aries. Chiron right now is 29 degrees Aries, as per the time of the broadcast. And Chiron Aries is also addressing wounds around the sense of self, the name, the bloodline, the innovation, and boundaries. For example, if somebody crossed or violated my boundaries, and let's say it happened in a professional context, when I address, let's say, their ideas, for their name to be mentioned without that stirring up further conflict, my boundaries need to be consistently honored in spirit, matter, real estate, finances, sense of self, and honor and respect to my ways. So Chiron is going to begin to make its last remediation degrees within Aries. Venus enters Sagittarius January 7th. New Moon in Capricorn, still the middle decan. Mars retrograde in Virgo January 10th. And Mercury ingresses to Aquarius January 13th. Upon its ingress, January 16th, it will conjoin Pluto on 4 degrees Aquarius. And we have to remember that the Pluto in Aquarius opposes Leo. This is where, even when we look at astrology, there are many things that we can turn to AI search, and it prompts the question, what of that do we take with us, and how do we use technology to improve or to do even bigger things with astrology? Um, as well as, upon this move to technology, are all of our individual ideas credited? And credited also fiscally. A lot of us made significant contributions. Certain people made a contribution on different platforms, then for various reasons weren't on the platforms. And that can be them deciding to pick another platform, or that can be, okay, Aquarius is also square in Scorpio, where we have this system, the global system, the global nervous system, versus the personal nature. To the other side of the square, we have Taurus, and Taurus is values. In a global system, the value of embodiment. Venus is bringing into union that has to be willingly consensual in each and every aspect of that union. Aquarius is shared resources, is communal resources. On an equal, decentralized basis. That's Aquarius. That's Aquarius. Okay, for example, the sense of embodiment, particularly when we look at the consciousness where people can, facilitated by AI, experience the consciousness of a leader, the consciousness of the person who um, uh, um, cleans the street in, and that is beyond fascinating and beautiful. And it allows for sharing ideas and wealth in a safe communal basis. And then there is the question of embodiment. Okay, we feel the consciousness, then, I don't know, I line my big toe, somebody has a reaction to that. And I'm like, well, it's my body. How do we share that communal space and able to access our embodiment in a way that is allowing us to have our individual selves as well as that connection on an equal basis. Okay, particularly we have to remember Lilith is going to begin her co-presence with Rahu and Pluto. And by the time she's done, we're going to be probably looking at Mary Magdalene and Jesus as Shiva and Shakti. And if Jesus is going to be a woman, then Mary Magdalene is probably going to be a trans woman or or a man, or like, and she definitely won't be a repentant whore. Again, equal. Okay, I'm taking a scope of what is marketed as Christianity. Okay, and how it looks like to the person that is exposed to social media content, and only and the fact that there is even a debate about Mary Magdalene's dignity in the face of Christianity, not even in the face of Islam or Judaism. Now, Mercury-Pluto conjunction is probably going to address all of these Genesis parts, all of the parts where we had the story of Adam and Eve being exiled from heaven, and then before that Lilith exiled from heaven, and then Eve was eating the ripe apple, was offering the ripe apple to Adam, and then the closest approximate of willingly consensual sex ended up in punishment and subjugation over nothing. Mercury begs the question, are we going to rewrite that? Are we going to change the books? Sun ingresses to Aquarius January 20. January 22, full moon in Leo. January 25, we're going to have the Sun conjoining Pluto, 5-degree Aquarius. Already a direct Pluto in Aquarius. And this is another annual core changes and transformation when it comes to leadership, perhaps in that decentralized power conglomerate that is actually global. A lot of question, how do we lead a world? How do we lead a global world with wealth redistribution, honoring the divergent cultures, identity, perspectives? And January 26, Mercury conjoining Rahu at 21 degrees Aquarius, and this is already the core wealth redistribution part of Aquarius, the part that begins to be 2 meters from Dana Balgadi. Overall, a lot of presence in Capricorn, notable movement in Aries, Mars retrograde in Virgo, and a lot of placements in Aquarius and the Leo axis. Hail fell Saturn. Everything is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is still in Aries, direct the entire month. That gives us a month that is centered on structure, power structures, alliances of power structures, rejuvenating the way we communicate in and within power structures, the sense of self within power structures. Venus in Sagittarius is carrying the value of freedom on also a philosophical and religious level. And of course, Venus is also the feminine. Jupiter, Venus, particularly in Sagittarius, accentuate the suffragist, the right of the woman to say yes or maybe the right of the woman to the access to choice. Mars retrograde in Mercury sign is where we are going to be more acutely aware of certain details. And again, where's Mercury in Saturn sign? What details are connected with the friction? If we think about Mars, where there can be an argument or a friction, what in detail, where in detail is the argument? What in essence is causing the friction? Is there a detail that we can change that can alleviate the friction? Um, Mars is ruling over Chiron in Aries. So it's probably going to be about either the first image or the first impression. If we think about it, if an aristocrat post Epstein list being out, if an aristocrat meets, let's say, a young woman, a young civilian woman, that woman may have seen that aristocrat's pictures with a pedo attached to their name, while that person might see that she is not so properly dressed. Her clothes might be not the cleanest, or she's not even sure if it's that person or not, and she might not even, it's kind of like that. And we have a wound around first impression that Chiron can tend to remediate. If you think about Gen Z, an aristocratic business person speak with a Gen Zer. That aristocratic may be covertly, or if more familial, outright being abrasive, or that Gen Zer would just say that's offensive, that's abusive. But the big pro is the ability to actually have a conversation and a juncture of wealth redistribution without, if I think about what is Pluto in Aquarius brought us along the year or along the cycle, it brought us more democratic structures of regime. Okay? Democracy is maybe the only structure of regime where a leading prime minister or president can end their contention and cycle back home. That's the type of conversations that allow it. If the Gen Zer or that, I don't know, woman civilian can safely go back home, then so could the president and the prime minister. By the merit of that wealth redistribution in Aquarius, it is also creating more awareness. If I think about leaders that were living in a humble apartment or in a tent with a family, or it's a very Aquarian, and the concept was that they can take the public transportation to, let's say, the parliament, and enjoy the freedom and the lack of security around. And those are actual examples. Whereas when the gap is overwhelming, then the amount of security, which is essentially civilian money expenses, exceeds, and the legitimacy of the regime decreases just by the merit of that gap. Now, of course, there is also the bridging with the fact that the world contains more than governments, and there are various cultures and various um, we are going to be thinking structure, communication within the structure, the juncture between Capricorn and Aquarius, the hierarchical versus the more decentralized. Rahu in Ketu 22 degree, strong stellium in Capricorn upon the new moon, 7 January 2027, and the new moon is co-present with Lilith and with Mercury. Saturn 8 degrees Aries, which according to Austin Coppock would still be the world degree. Not the world degree, but the world decan. This is a lunation that accentuates a top-down look at the world degree. It's an acute square, and that square is with Lilith. What does Lilith do in Capricorn? It's a big question because Lilith is the woman that would not be subjugated, in the sense that she would not be above or below. Okay, Lilith in Capricorn is always fascinating because it's like Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is the unusual, the silly walk, gassy giant in the sign of fixed earth. Lilith in Capricorn is the woman that would not be above or below in a hierarchical sign, in a pyramidal sign. And the acute square with Saturn in Aries is us looking, Saturn being the ruler of this activity in Capricorn, us looking at the I am from a hierarchical perspective. Saturn questions are, what rank is this person in? Aries doesn't understand the nature of that question. Aries is always the head of. Capricorn is saying, but we are preparing for big worldly events. Aries is saying, in which individual sovereignty would have exceeding importance in global order. For there to be global order, there has to be individual sovereignty per every individual on a worldly scale. And you know, Capricorn addresses the decorum and the rites of passage. Aries says, hey, but that's a fundamental truth we can't ignore. Okay, the legitimacy of a regime. If I think about how easy or difficult it would be to secure a president or a prime minister or a global government member, first of all, I have to ask, how on earth do we get legitimacy for a global government? The only way is that every single individual is sovereign. How would anybody secure that? Okay, think about security as insurance. Each member of that security group, okay, very Saturn thinking, has life insurance. How do I get to life insure a person is supposed to secure a global government candidate if every single individual on earth doesn't have sovereignty? So that's the square. Because Capricorn is pyramidal structure, is ranks. It's people that have been since age 0 particularly trained to do particular things. It's not a, Mars Saturn squares are not easy. Let's move to the next nation. Full moon in Leo. Yeah, these are heavyweight questions, I know. It is a Saturn sign. Saturn does deal with the practical structure, the practical reality. And we have Moon 2 degrees Leo opposing the Sun and applying to oppose Pluto in 5-degree Aquarius. Moon ruled by the Sun, Sun is closer to Pluto. This is going to be a full moon that will be very revealing of the hidden, decentralized plutocrat structure of leadership. And with this type of configuration, with the Moon Sun having deeper conversations than just a new and full moon, okay? Moon in the sign of the Sun, of course, in a full moon opposing the Moon from the place of the Sun's detriment, opposing to where is the home sign. This is a conversation um, that mundanely can be associated with people are leaders, leaders are people. Okay, if we think about, let's say, a conference, let's say military alliance conference, there is NATO summit within less than a month from the time of the recording. And let's say they are addressing certain issue and they want to bring um, civilian testimonies of, I don't know, the effect of AI on civilian at war. They would need to secure the civilians. They would need to have the accommodation. And not only that, the civilians are not properly trained as, let's say, an aristocracy kid would be. Their demands for security are different. Civilians require way more adjustment of the environment to be safe than the personal training to be safe in every environment. Whereas if that meeting would be in a neighborhood, then the shifting the structure around would be taking into account completely different things. How do we make that civilian comfortable in their environment? Where is the place where, when we talk about something that is a representative structure, there's something that is both we have the even in the most decentralized ways, there's something that's at least somewhat hierarchical, and yet it's not a celebrity meeting. Okay, that notion that those are representatives. Okay, the leader representative, Sun in Aquarius is very much about that particular the shifting of the perspective from the time of the barons to the awareness that every person that has a source of wealth or a source of power is a representative. And that gets acutely clear in the last decan of Aquarius. This lunation is very protective by a double bisextile. And it tells me that there's going to be ability to alleviate a lot of the tensions, because we're going it's kind of like meeting 12 o'clock people, representative leaders. And the representative leaders can be of a financial conglomerate, of a brokerage company. In Aquarius, we don't just expect there to be, oh, there's a body called government and that's supposed to be representative. No, 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 no. Who owns the market, who owns the resources, those should be representative of, okay, is shifting the thinking from power brokerage to actually representative governance. And it's representative at the ownership level. And making decisions and having a voice within the structure level. And by the way, the beauty of the technology in Aquarius is that it's possible. Okay, if I take a look at the cultural revolutions that were in China, they caused a collapse of the regime. And an acute decentralization of the structure of the governance in a highly hierarchical structure, culture, par excellence. There's something unprecedented. People think about, oh, China, they have this one party. No, 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 no. To have a decentralized party in dynastic China, it's but then when we think about the global world or the global scale, the global governance, um, Jupiter Ketu. Now, by the way, and this is excellent for leaders, also for people that have wealth. Why? It reduces their expenses on security, and it makes it more viable for them to sustain. Way less wars. Yes, pardon, but even in mafiosi organizations, if I think about the establishments of the jurisdiction system, the basically in essence it was not to be a pack, or maritime law, okay, not to be a pack of pirates fighting over something, and yet to maintain the freedom to trade. And in that way, decentralization is contributing to security. It also places an importance on how do we make the wealth. Okay, if it's easier to make a decent living being decent, society is going to be thriving. Um, Mercury, Rahu, Sun, Pluto, Mercury, Rahu in Aquarius. Lilith still in Capricorn. Mars in Virgo. Uranus retrograde, conjoining Sedna, 1 degree Gemini, Neptune 2 degree Aries. All in all, January begins with acute awareness to structure. Potential to refine and resolve issues that in a way that sustains life on a global scale. Um, the new moon in the middle decan of Capricorn allows us to prepare in advance, and the full moon is very supported to let go of the residues that come with those global meetings of peoples and leaders, the different cultures, the different um, and it can absolutely widen the horizons for everyone. Um, Notable aspects. Sun opposes Pluto January 25. Sun square Chiron January 16. Sun conjoins Lilith and Mercury January 1 and 3. Basically meaning that the sun, the role of leadership in both conglomerates and global scale would go through a lot of adjustments. It's kind of adjusting the structure, refining the structure. Um, Venus opposes Uranus January 9. The opposition is going to be from Sagittarius. This is where we can have revolutions in our values. Let's say when somebody says freedom, what do they mean? In China, it means the freedom to be happy with what you have. In the West, it means something completely different. to women, it might mean something completely different. Freedom to or freedom from. The freedom to have the freedom of women in religion or freedom from religion, or both. Uranus in Gemini is the practical aspect, and Venus in Sagittarius is the philosophical, the religious or secular philosophical, even morale. Um, Mars squares Venus January 16. Mars goes retrograde January 10th. We're going to have Jupiter trining Chiron January 3rd, and this is a little bit more of a rare aspect because Jupiter takes 12 years to go through the zodiac. And this is a Jupiter that is could be curating certain wounds around what we believe that we see, the sense of self, what we believe that versus what we believe that we see. It squares Venus in Scorpio, and it's going to be squaring the moon. Venus in Scorpio is very single focused. Jupiter in Leo is Jupiter is big, and Magha Nakshatra in Leo is mythically big. So Venus in Scorpio wants some sort of a single commitment. It's to a certain value. It can be very transformative. Jupiter and Scorpio is something is the invisible. Magha plays on the visible. Scorpio is more down to earth. Magha is the big. Okay, if I think about, let's say, an interview of a leader or businessman or woman in their gold-filled palace versus that same person having a beer with civilians or home-cooked meal in a restaurant. That would be the, Scorpio would be the latter, Magha would be the former. Jupiter trining Chiron can be the awareness that those big pictures don't always tell us about who that person is. And I think it's going to be very relevant when it comes to the world agrees and an entire 2027. I was receiving the omens around ice cream, and there was a lot of campaigning around, let's say, Sarah Netanyahu with the ice cream purchases as um, portraying her as Marie Antoinette. Okay, it doesn't have to go full blown Epstein list. It can be even those things that are the ice cream bill of the government, and the acute awareness that, hey, somebody or a public representative can also have eating disorders, for example. Okay, I'm not saying that that's the case, but like emotional eating can happen to presidents. But then the question is, what happens when a civilian needs that same budget? Now here is a striking answer. It can be that that civilian would be having access to remediation and getting to the root of the addiction to save budget faster than, okay, now take that ice cream conversation to the Epstein files. Mercury's son Lilith with Mars trining. I get a lot of Lilithesque themes. Now here is something. Ketu Magha Rahu closer to the Nabalgiri. I cannot begin to stress that enough. Honor the feminine. I've been saying that for quite some time. Nothing is more, if you think about the equivalent of Marie Antoinette, is the mistreat of people that are considered feminine. Okay, it by any rank. That's the like, if we get that, we get Pluto in Aquarius. People think, oh, governments. No, energy companies, infrastructure companies, brokerage conglomerates. Yeah, right now we are at the times where there is competition on not just what energy companies, but what type of energy. Now, let's be extremely honest. How did Rockefeller win over Graham Bell. Women got the right to vote and separate bank accounts. Women got the right to divorce. You won't have Nikola Tesla's energy running free in the world where people, and you don't want it to, where people don't honor the feminine, because otherwise, okay, what was that light used for? Factories that work 24/7. Um, Uranus sextile Neptune, we're still within the bisextile the entire month. So that's January. A lot of structural issues, big worldly issues. When people think about New World Order, this is the month where the foundations for, not the cornerstone, the foundations. Cornerstone is Aries, although Saturn is in Aries, but it's more to the end of the first decan of Aries. The acute awareness. The more global a structure is, the more important for each and every individual to have sovereignty within it. It doesn't take a lot for a white hat to become a black hat without the white hat even knowing, if the white hat's sovereignty and sense of self were not honored from the get-go consistently. Okay? They just simply become hackable. And those who say, oh, vice versa. Vice versa has no meaning. White hat means that being ethical means sense of self. If it's just a coincidence, um, so this is January. Big month, structural, and supported.